On this week's show, eBay sends out a survey hinting at matching UK's delivery service here in the US. Walmart adds pre owned luxury handbags to their assortment, and I sell a whole mess of books. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 282 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and we've got some interesting news, potentially news, I guess it is, coming out of eBay here in the US to match some shipping options that are going on over in the UK, and a follow-up story on how UK sellers are adapting to those changes. We've also got some updates from Depop and Walmart. So there will be links to all of these articles in the show notes in the video description below, as well as timestamps down below. So if you want to go to a particular segment, you can do that. You'll want to stick around for a pretty interesting What Sold recap at the back end of the show, or just click the timestamp and go right to that. With that said, if you get something out of today's show, please do me a favor if you're watching on YouTube and hit that thumbs up button. If you're not currently a follower of the podcast or a subscriber to the YouTube channel, please consider doing that as well. Would love to have you on board. With that, let's get into this reselling news.
News updates.
So last week, apparently, eBay sent out a survey here in the US that hinted at simple delivery managed shipping possibly coming to the States. This is a program that is in the process of being rolled out over in the UK, and as we'll talk about a little further on in the show, being met with some resistance over there. So not sure how popular it is and how well it's working, but a survey went out in the US kind of hinting at the prospect of something similar coming in the US. This article was over on Value Added Resource as an eBay UK private sellers, pushback on simple delivery managed shipping mandate for a variety of reasons. A new seller survey here in the US could indicate a similar offering may be under consideration for this market as well. A Value Added Resource reader and 25-year eBay seller reached out with some information about a survey they recently received asking their opinions about a potential new shipping solution. I did not receive that survey. Let me know in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify if you got this survey. This went out, it sounds like maybe a week or two ago. Received a few weeks ago a survey from eBay asking me my thoughts about a new service eBay was said to be considering, and I thought you might be interested in case you might have heard of something similar, said the writer. The proposed service would offer eBay pickup of my packages at my home. I'd have the option of even letting eBay do the wrapping for me. eBay would handle shipping, presumably dropping them off at the post office. I would assume it would be much like it is in the UK, where eBay determines what shipping service to use. I would assume that would be kind of the same program. They would decide whether it should go USPS, Ground Advantage, Media Mail, UPS, FedEx. I would assume that would all be under their control, and then they would make sure it gets routed to the correct place. Seems like a big logistical undertaking to do, but and not to be too whatever. Given all the other problems they have, this seems like a huge step that I don't know that they have the logistic capacity or the technical capacity to pull off. But that's just a bit of a digression on my part. There was also the idea of a drop-off locker. If the post office was too far away, or again, wherever the item was going, I could drop my items off in a nearby locker and eBay would then handle the rest. Reference was also made to a proprietary eBay delivery service, much like Amazon has developed their own delivery service, which allows them to do delivery at a much faster pace than what any of us can do. You can have one business day or same business day handling, but if USPS is taking 8 days to get an item. I've had one recently that took 22 days to go about 22 miles because it got misplaced in the Cincinnati hub. So having their own, not to say that Amazon never has problems, but to have your own delivery service option would certainly eliminate a lot of those problems for sellers. Would probably add in a lot of additional ones that we're not foreseeing, but that's a discussion for another day. The survey recipient went on to say that after completing the basic questions, eBay asked if they would like to receive more information about this proposed shipping solution, with the caveat that they would have to sign a non disclosure agreement before any additional details would be divulged. Sadly, not an uncommon practice. In principle, I'm not a big fan of NDAs. I understand from a proprietary standpoint where a company might want to get feedback from a user about a potential new program, but that they don't want it to be fully divulged in any kind of detail to tip off their competition or anybody else about what's going on. So I get it to some extent, but just in general principle, I'm not a fan of NDAs. The possibility of having eBay handle wrapping and packaging of the item is particularly interesting, indicating they may be looking to leverage third-party partnership of some kind for this service. I can't imagine that eBay would want to do this in-house, that they would be hiring staff and whatever. But I guess if there is the potential for them to somehow begin their own delivery and distribution network, which seems like a massive, massive undertaking this late in the game for eBay, if you're going to hire all those people and go through all of the acquisition of equipment and personnel to do that, packing these items, picking them up, packing them, and then getting them to their destination doesn't seem like that big of an extra step in the end. For example, both UPS and FedEx offer solutions for no box, no label returns, where companies can have customers drop off items to be returned without the hassle of packing or printing a label themselves. The carrier handles that part of the process and then bills the company. I, like most of you, have probably already done this on multiple occasions with Amazon, where they just send you a label and a barcode, and you take the item to the nearest UPS store, and UPS handles the rest, including packing it up. So it's not too much of a stretch. The article continues to see how eBay could potentially work with their shipping partners to offer a similar service, except for outbound shipping from a seller to a buyer instead of for returns. eBay has already done something similar with FedEx to provide labels for the mandatory $14.95 shipping option for sneakers in the Authenticity Guarantee program, and they also partner with EasyShip for the eBay International Shipping Program, which would make launching a solution like this relatively easy from a technology and integration perspective. The only caveat I would have to that is the orders of magnitude larger scale of handling most, all of eBay's shipping versus what they're doing just with the smaller market of high-end sneakers would be a massive, massive undertaking. While a few generic survey questions don't offer much insight, it's a safe bet eBay wouldn't even be considering this type of service if there wasn't a revenue-generating angle in it somewhere for them. Obviously, this is a way for them to make money, as is the case over in the UK. With this simple managed delivery, they determine who is going to do the shipping, which service they're going to use. They set the price, and any difference in price between what they charge to the buyer and what they pay to the actual delivery service, they pocket that difference, where right now it's you and I potentially that are pocketing that difference. So this is an opportunity for eBay to generate revenue by taking a chunk of what is essentially our income at this point, and making it their own. Now, is that a trade you'd be willing to make to not have to deal with actually packing and shipping items? Let me know in the comments down below. Would you trade that little bit of piece of potential profit in the difference between the shipping discount, assuming you're passing it along, or not passing it along as the case may be, to the buyer to not have to mess with any of that? Let me know down below. In fact, eBay has explicitly said that revenue from simple delivery in the UK is an integral part of how they will remonetize certain transactions after going fee-free for private sellers in October and planning to bring in buyer fees in February, which I believe goes into effect on February 4th. With simple delivery, which is currently, again, only available in the UK, as I just said, eBay decides which shipping options to show on the listing. The buyer pays whatever rate is shown, and that money goes to eBay. eBay then provides a prepaid label to the seller and then pockets that difference that there may be between what the buyer pays and the rate they have negotiated with the shipping carriers. In that particular case, though, the seller, the individual seller, is still responsible for getting that item to whatever the British equivalent of the postal service is. Here, they're apparently also teasing the option of home pickup as well. So this is probably really preliminary, and I'm sure they're waiting to see how it works. in the UK, what kind of pushback they are going to and are already getting over there before they implement this. But the longest journey begins with a single step, and this appears to be a step in that direction. Let me know what you think about the potential of this service. For my part, I don't. I mean, I guess if they force you to do it, you're going to have to do it. I would rather not. I take a lot of pride personally in how I pack and ship items. A big piece of the amazing feedback that I get from my buyers is how well my items are packed and protected for shipping. And I don't know that I would, to be fair, trust eBay to perform at that same level. And I don't know what do they do with feedback if a buyer leaves feedback that the item was not properly packed and shipped. They would have to again grant exceptions for feedback in the case of shipping damage because they would be responsible for that, not the seller. There's just so many downstream things here that make this kind of a daunting prospect. Another change in the UK, eBay is pushing for faster shipping times with new delivery speed search filters. We talked about back in the fall how Etsy had said very specifically that they were going to surface higher in search results items with shorter handling, processing, and shipping times. And eBay is now in the UK doing something similar by adding new filters that show delivery speed when shopping. Interesting. eBay is encouraging UK sellers to offer shorter handling time and faster shipping methods to appear in the new delivery speed search filters now available to buyers. Again, it's a split situation in the UK because they have private sellers on one hand that are going to be required to use the new service that we just talked about, the managed delivery service that eBay offers. But you have business sellers who are using the traditional methods of shipping themselves through various carriers. So again, as a buyer, it can be really confusing. Why is an item coming from the same area from one seller? Why is shipping higher with a longer delivery time than another? This is really messy, in my opinion. If you're in the UK and happen to be watching this, let me know how all this is shaking out over there because it seems like a big, big mess. The new filters were announced in the UK Community Forum today, touted as a solution to, quote, simplify the shopping experience and support your sales. We're excited to announce, eBay said, the launch of our new delivery speed filters on eBay UK, available on desktop and mobile. This feature is designed to simplify the shopping experience by allowing buyers to easily find listings that offer faster delivery options. So when you're going into your search and you're selecting your filters, I'm looking for this particular item. It's a book. I want it to be a hardcover, and I also want to now add another filter for fast delivery options. By enabling buyers to filter their searches based on delivery speed, we hope to increase the visibility of listings that offer fast delivery options while also helping to support conversion rates. How to ensure your listings are visible when the delivery speed filter is applied. And here, as is always the case, the devil's in the details. To ensure your listings appear in search results, your items will need to offer 1 to 3 day delivery. I can't speak to delivery speed in the UK, but I can tell you that here in the US, that is darn near impossible unless you use like actual express delivery, which is exorbitantly expensive. If you're using regular, even USPS Ground Advantage, in most zones from where I'm at, getting something to a destination in 1 to 3 days is a bit of a stretch. I mean, they're not guaranteeing that kind of delivery, even in some cases with priority mail. So that is a really, really narrow. I can see 1 to 3 day handling time, but to try to guarantee 1 to 3 day delivery, man, that's a big, big ask, in my opinion. To achieve this, the combination of your handling time and delivery service must equal up to 3 working days. For example, if your handling time is 1 day, you would need to choose a delivery service that delivers in 1 to 2 days. Again, here in the US, virtually impossible, in my opinion, to hit that kind of target in anything other than maybe your local zone. And again, even in that case, if USPS is your choice, even if they show 1 to 2 day delivery, in many cases, they're not hitting it. Their on-time delivery of first-class mail here in the United States is somewhere in the 84 to 85% range. So a significant number of packages aren't even hitting their delivery service time scales, and I don't believe they're 1 to 2 day. I think they're longer than that. So, this I would not expect that this would be coming to the U.S. anytime soon. Updating your handling time or delivery service can be made directly via your postage business policies within the Seller Hub. It says. Handling and shipping times have been a perennial problem for eBay, as consumer expectations, of course, have been set by Amazon, which, as we just talked about, can achieve fast delivery speeds due to their own robust fulfillment network. They're handling all that themselves, especially if you're doing FBA. They have the item already in their warehouse, so it's not coming from me, Joe Seller, and then going to Amazon and then going to the final buyer. It's already in Amazon's warehouse. It's being delivered by their delivery fleet, which means they can do this in very, very quick fashion. A day, same day, 2 day, which is simply not going to be possible using you as the shipper and a third-party shipping service of any kind. Unfortunately, eBay has to lean on sellers to provide a competitive experience with very little support or benefit in doing so. The article continues. In the UK in particular, the issue of longer handling and shipping times is also largely self-inflicted, as estimated delivery dates have been historically seen to be very inaccurate, resulting in sellers often adding additional days to their handling time in order to try to avoid providing unrealistic promises that ultimately disappoint buyers. Again, eBay shows here in the US, based on the shipping method you've selected and what the USPS, for instance, has said is the kind of standard delivery time from, say, here in Hamilton, Ohio to San Jose, California. It should take whatever, 5 days. I have 1 business day handling. So they're showing an estimated delivery time window beginning at 5 or 6 days. But if the delivery service is consistently not hitting that time frame, those estimated dates obviously are completely inaccurate. And it reflects poorly on the seller, not on eBay. Customer's perception, it said it was going to be here in 5 to 6 days or whatever, and it took 8 or 10 or whatever the case may be. Even if I shipped it the very next day or the same day, I'm going to get hit with that. So naturally, sellers extend their handling time to try to cover that, to avoid that disappointment and potential refunds, cancellations, negative feedback, and so on. Because sellers bear the brunt of that disappointment through returns and claims, negative feedback, and seller standard policies that can end up adding additional fees, I can't blame sellers, Liz says, for using the few tools in their control, like handling times, to try to mitigate those possible negative consequences. I went too far there. If eBay's worried about buyers not seeing fast enough shipping estimates, the first thing they should do, the article says, is to fix the many long-standing issues making current estimates inaccurate, or revamp their policies so sellers feel more confident and trust they will not be unfairly held responsible and bear the costs for those long-standing issues. And again, kind of same thing with what we just talked about. If eBay takes over packing and handling shipping, am I as a seller going to be held responsible for items that arrived damaged or get lost in transit or whatever? Those then become eBay's responsibility. Are they going to protect sellers? In this case, it appears, at least in the UK, they have not been. This type of search filter is not new for eBay. In fact, the US site has had something similar for quite some time, going back to 2018. Attempts to offer now discontinued guaranteed delivery, if you remember that, to simplified shipping badges that they used in 2021. Currently, it does give more leeway with 2 to 4 business days instead of 1 to 3. But even that, in my opinion, given the current state, particularly of the United States Postal Service, is not enough. So again, if you're in the UK, let me know what you think of this new shipping speed update. eBay made an acquisition last week, car auction site Caramel, to streamline and simplify, they say, the vehicle buying experience. eBay has announced their first acquisition of 2025, buying the car auction site Caramel for an undisclosed sum to provide streamlined and simplified vehicle buying experience. The announcement said, eBay, a global commerce leader that connects millions of sellers and buyers around the world, announced today that it had signed a definitive agreement to acquire Caramel, an end-to-end online automotive transaction solution provider. Their innovative technology platform provides a secure and seamless digital transaction experience that handles all the complexities of a vehicle sale, including paperwork, ownership transfer, financing, transportation, and more. whether transacting on their site or app through an independent dealer or via their multiple marketplace and auction partners. eBay Motors is the destination for enthusiasts looking to find a huge selection of auto parts and accessories, and this acquisition provides eBay buyers with a safe and trusted online platform to conduct vehicle purchase. The addition of Caramel will make buying and selling vehicles on eBay more simple than ever, regardless of which state the vehicle and the buyer are located in. Quote, eBay's acquisition of Caramel is about creating trust for vehicle buyers. Buying a car is a big moment. Caramel's platform brings it all into one simple, seamless process. Title and identity verification, insurance, financing, even shipping the car to the buyer after purchase, said Chris Prill, the general manager of eBay Motors. With Caramel and eBay combining forces, he continued, both buyers and sellers will be able to complete vehicle transactions on eBay with greater peace of mind, and Caramel can further establish itself across a myriad of platforms. Let me know in the comments down below. Personally, I've never heard of this company, so I don't know anything about them. How does it work? In its current form, they act as a middleman for the transaction. Once the price is accepted, Caramel actually buys the car from the seller, and then in turn, the buyer buys the car from Caramel in order to provide protection on both sides. Caramel also handles title transfer and registration, saving the buyer a trip to the DMV. So that's a really interesting option. I assume there are fees involved on one, if not both ends. I don't know anything about this service, so let me know if you've used it. What fees did you pay as either a buyer or a seller? There's a handy little chart there. Again, this article will be linked in the show notes down below if you want to go take a look and see how this thing works. It'll be interesting to see. The article continues how that service gets incorporated into eBay eventually. Will it be included for free on eligible vehicle sales like the various authentication programs eBay has introduced for sneakers, trading cards, handbags, and so on? Or will it be an add-on service presented to the buyer on the listing like the current functionality for tire installation? So another acquisition for eBay, another opportunity potentially to boost their business in a category that they are really, really focused on, which is automotive. It's been particularly parts and accessories, but this is potentially a chance to help them grow their automotive business overall. We're not sure. This article is not sure if this is a change or a glitch, but an eBay report buyer form no longer includes false item not received claims. And the article says, is this a stealth change or a glitch? eBay sellers have noticed they no longer have an option to report buyers who fall false item not received claims, wondering if it's yet another stealth unannounced change or simply a glitch. Let me know if you've tried to file one. Recently, have you noticed this? One of eBay's policies is you can report a buyer for opening an item not received claim when the tracking shows the item had already been delivered. We do indeed do this, as it frequently will get those cases removed from the service metrics for item not received. I just did this a few weeks ago, said the writer. However, it seems in the last 2 weeks they have completely changed around the report a buyer process. I don't even see an option to report them for this reason now, even though all the other reasons for reporting a buyer are still there, even though the abusive buyer policy clearly states that it's against policy to open an INR when tracking confirms delivery. Liz went in and checked, and she can confirm the design of the report a buyer process has changed, and she did not see any options related to item not received claims either. As the poster points out, eBay's policy pages still list making false INR claims something which is not allowed and should be reported under abusive buyer guidelines. A eBay community staff member responded to the post saying they found a site-wide alert for a different issue impacting the report a buyer function that may indicate this issue is also related to that technical problem. That seems like a stretch, but here's what they said. I found there was an earlier alert opened yesterday for issues with reporting buyers. It was more specifically about getting an error message rather than not seeing the option, but I have a pretty good hunch whoever this person was said that those are directly related to the same root issue. The article says, I'm not exactly confident. That is not exactly a confident answer, though, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time a stealth policy update was made on one page, but not updated on other pages at the same time. We, of course, and Liz will keep an eye out for a more definitive answer, but let me know in the comments, have you tried to file one of these reports, and have you seen that option is missing? eBay, I love you. Depop is announcing a new ambassador program to expand creator community efforts. Timing on this probably could have been better because as I sit down here to record this, my news feed is flooded with the shutdown of TikTok, which I assume a lot of ambassadors were using. I don't expect that that'll be a long-lived ban at this point, but that is what's going on this morning. But Depop has announced a new ambassador program looking to recruit creators to help expand the Depop community both online across social media and, interestingly, hosting in-person local events. If you're interested in becoming a Depop ambassador, here are the details. Help reduce fashion waste, they said, raise awareness of circular fashion within your community, and make money while you do it. The Depop Ambassador Program is launching in January 2025, and applications are open on an ongoing basis. What you need to be able to do this, you need to be an active Depop user, 18 or older, solutions-driven, confident, creative, and self-motivated, strong interest in circular fashion, previous event planning and or brand ambassador experience preferred, and you want to be part of a movement that is redefining the future of fashion. What you'll be expected to do as a Depop ambassador, you will play a vital role in expanding Depop's presence within your community over an 8-week period. You will engage and foster a community centered around sustainable fashion. Those responsibilities will include hosting events that engage your community about Depop and circular fashion, attend weekly check-in meetings with Depop's internal marketing team, submit weekly entries for the culture panel, distribute Depop branded merchandise through your events, and create UGC content about Depop. What Depop is offering you: marketing experience, event planning, social media marketing, analytics, branding, project management, and overseeing budgets. So there's going to be some money involved in this deal. Direct training and coaching by Depop employees, opportunities for career development and networking, an opportunity to work with a brand you're passionate about and who cares about the planet. You can add a leading global brand to your resume and hands-on industry experience with a leading global brand. The application form makes it clear this program is currently for the US marketplace only, and while their description makes it sound like they will be focusing a lot on in-person events, the application also reveals they're looking for people with an established social media presence who can help promote the Depop brand and bring an audience with them. Of course, they want to capitalize on the bigger influencers in this area and for you to bring your audience to them, which makes perfect sense. And it sounds like they are going to incentivize you. Depop doesn't appear to be broadly advertising this new program, but interestingly, someone who says they were invited to interview for it posted about it on the mercari subreddit, highlighting how much crossover there may be between resellers on these platforms and how programs like this may sway them toward one over another. So that's interesting. This discussion was over on the mercari subreddit. Also, interestingly, apparently Depop indicated they will be paying ambassadors to host events. So if you're a Depop seller, let me know if you have any interest in this and if you can share any details if you have gone through any of the kind of interview and setup process. Last bit of news this week: luxury handbags arrive at Walmart with new rebag deal to rival eBay's focus vertical strategy. We just talked about this strategy in terms of automotive. Here is another attempt from Walmart to kind of take a shot across eBay's bow and go into an area that they're really focused on. Walmart has added tens of thousands of pre-owned luxury handbags, jewelry, and watches to its marketplace thanks to a new partnership with the resale platform Rebag, and this began on January 16th. Rebag's full catalog of about 27,000 items, including products from Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Chanel, Gucci, Christian Dior, and more, will be available on Walmart.com, coinciding with the launch of a new website section focused specifically on luxury resale. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this specific look. Director of Business Strategy and Development, Fashion, Kinsey Griffin, and VP of Categories, Michael Mosser, announced the partnership and the launch of Lux Resold on LinkedIn, aiming to capture the attention of pre-owned luxury lovers who might not have thought of Walmart as a shopping destination in the past. I got to be completely honest. No, I would not have if I'm not a luxury handbag shopper, obviously. But if I was, Walmart would absolutely not have been top of mind for me. You can let me know yeah, if I'm off base on that. Annette, excess baggage. What do you think of that? Is Walmart would that be top of mind for you? Those posts are interesting for another reason. They highlight once again how Walmart continues to take market share in key categories away from eBay, built with a very interesting talent acquisition strategy in mind as well. eBay's CEO Jimmy Iannone rejoined eBay in 2020, ironically, after stints at both as the CEO of Sam's Club and the chief operating officer of Walmart's e-commerce, and has spent much of his tenure at the helm developing, again, what he calls his high-value enthusiast buyer-focused vertical strategy, which is investing in growing market segments with highly engaged buyer bases, such as, again, sneakers, trading cards, luxury fashion, and accessories, which include handbags, watches, and jewelry. And again, like we talked about a moment ago, auto parts. Mosser was the GM of lifestyle media toys at eBay from 2015 to 19, with a stop at Border X Lab before joining Walmart in 2021, and has apparently wasted no time in assembling a team of largely ex-eBayers to lead Walmart's business development efforts in these same high-value categories. We talked about that a couple of months ago. The exodus of people, or the recruitment of people by Walmart who are currently or have worked for eBay, it would broadly indicate they're really trying to compete with eBay in these segments. They're taking that knowledge base and applying it to what they're doing, matching that with what they already do successfully as Walmart, and are making a big push to kind of eat eBay's lunch in these categories. Let me know what you think of that. If you would consider buying a luxury handbag from Walmart.com. That's a really interesting thing. And again, they just continue to push the boundaries of what Walmart's marketplace can look like. Speaking of marketplaces, let's talk a little bit about what I sold last week. It was an exceptional week last week. If you follow me over on Instagram at Galaxy CDs Rocks, I posted my normal weekly recap on Saturday. I sold, I think it was 139 listings last week across 4 platforms. So really, really busy. I listed 145, so almost a 1-for-1, which is really, really good. I also sourced. I found a listing on Facebook Marketplace, kind of in Northwest Ohio. Was an abandoned church with a bunch of books, a bunch of religious books, as I talked about last week. Vintage religious books. I like them. I like them a lot. And there were multiple shelves of religious books. The listing said originally that they were $150. He marked that down to $100. I sent him a message and I went up and got them. It ended up being 507 books for $100, which worked out to like 19.7 cents a piece or something like that. So we're going to round it to 20 cents for anything that we sell. And I'll talk about it in the What Sold recap, but a really big score there. So it was a crazy busy week. I think I've got 16 things in this week's recap to go over. So without any further delay, let's get right into this. Elgin, A History of Elgin, Texas, from 1872 to 1972, published by the Elgin Historical Committee in, obviously, 1972. This is an illustrated hardcover, just a local history book. I tend to pick these up. They generally are fairly scarce, a little hard to find, really unusual, and almost always, eventually, there's a buyer for these. We're going to talk about a couple more of these kind of unusual pieces a little later in this segment. Had this listed for $24.99, got an offer of $20 on eBay, which I went ahead and took. The buyer paid a total of $27.47 for this item. I paid $4.10 in fees, $192 for the promoted listing fee, $5.38 to ship, which was paid by the buyer. This was part of a big 650 odd book lot that I'm into for 38 cents. So my net profit on this item, $13.60. Another one on eBay, another one from that same big purchase, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte from 1987. This was a Laurel Press UK hardcover in a kind of a fancy burgundy red with a lot of gold embossing on it. Really nice looking book, nice looking version of this. I had it listed for $24.99, got a watcher, sent out an offer, and sold it for $21.24 plus shipping. I paid $4.30 in fees. Again, cost of goods sold just 38 cents. So this sale, which the buyer paid a total of $28.98 for, netted me $16.56. Another one on eBay, Men Against Death by Paul DeCroof from 1932. This was an illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket from Harcourt, Brace and Company. This was discounted. I've had this book for quite some time. It was part of the big 15,000 book lot. So this was on sale for $21.44 plus shipping, which is what it sold for. I paid $4.28 in fees, $2.02 for the promoted listing fee. Again, cost of goods sold just 4 cents from that big bulk purchase. Net profit on this item $15.85. Men Against Death. Another one on eBay. This is from the big 1800 book lot that I bought back in the late fall. Elizabeth G.C. Menzies, Before the Waters, the Upper Delaware Valley. Illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket. The dust jacket was pretty worn, had some damage. That lot had, I don't know if this person had originally been from Delaware, but there were a ton of books in that lot from a massive flood that happened in the Upper Delaware Valley many, many years ago. And some of those books have been worth pretty decent money. This one I listed and sold for $21.99 plus shipping. The buyer paid a total of $29.02. $4.30 for me in fees. 50 cents was my cost of goods sold on this. My total cost $11.83. Net profit $17.19 for this book, Before the Waters, the Upper Delaware Valley. For sale of the week on Etsy, I had one of these. It's been a couple of months ago now, and I just came across the box that had some more of these in it. Johnson O'Connor, English Vocabulary Builder. This is volume 2 from 1951. Published by a company called the Human Engineering Lab. Big hardcover, kind of a reference book, listed for $29.99. I'm running a 10% off sale again this month over on Etsy, so this sold for $26.99 plus shipping. The buyer paid $34.74. I paid $3.44 in regular fees, $4.97 in the offsite ad fee, for a total of cost to me of $16.66. This was part of the big 1800 book lot, so I'm into this thing for 50 cents. My net profit $18.08. Johnson O'Connor, English Vocabulary Builder. I've sold both volume 1 and volume 2 now of this set fairly quickly after listing them, so be on the lookout for these. If you can get them for a buck or two, you're probably going to be able to flip them for $25 to $30. Another one on Etsy. This was an interesting one, also from that big lot. This is literally a small, kind of a paperback booklet from the Public Library Boston Association's publications. This is the handbook of the Boston Public Library. It was just what it sounds like. It was a guide to the Boston Public Library system, published in 1930. So a real interesting historical piece, listed for $29.99, sold on sale for $26.99. I paid $3.30 in fees. 50 cents again was my cost of goods sold. So my total costs on this were only $9.92. So an item sold for $26.99 netted me $23.39 over on Etsy. Back over to eBay, a couple of books that I picked up at an estate sale, end of the summer for $1 a piece. Encyclopedia of Social Work, issue 17, volumes 1 and 2, published in 1977 by the National Association of Social Workers. This was a hardcover set covering kind of newsletters that had been published by this particular organization over the course of 1977. Real nice condition, hardcover binding of these kind of newsletter magazines. Really interesting piece. I picked them up again for $1 a piece, so I got $2 in them, and they sold for $27.99 plus shipping. Buyer paid $9.13 in media mail shipping. I was able to ship these out ground advantage for just $8.40, so I made a little bit of extra there. $5.79 in fees. Again, $2 cost of goods sold. Net profit $20.93. I talk about pretty regularly old textbooks and kind of specialty social work, nursing, engineering, metallurgy, those more unusual pieces, not necessarily fast movers. They can be long tail, but they generally can bring pretty decent money. So I'm always on the lookout for this sort of thing. Interesting sale over on Mercari. This didn't take any time at all to sell. This is Wizard for Hire by Jim Butcher, a 2005 first printing, hardcover in its dust jacket, published by the Science Fiction Book Club. This, if I'm not mistaken, was 3 books in one. Published again back in 2005. I listed this and sold it in probably less than 24 hours over on Mercari for $30 free shipping. The buyer paid $31.71, including tax. Mercari now charging fees, so I did pay $3 in fees. This cost $6.13 to ship. This was part of the big science fiction book buy I did a couple of months ago, so I was into this for 63 cents. So my total costs, $11.47, meant that I netted $20.24 on this book. Wizard for Hire by Jim Butcher. Probably one to be on the lookout for if you're out and about. Back over to eBay. These were interesting. So part of that big 650 book lot that I bought, they were just kind of randomly throwing stuff in boxes for me. And I ended up with 4 of these really unusual little box sets. Scott Forsman Linguistic Block Series. These are 4 complete sets, pre-primer through 2nd grade. And there's a little instruction booklet inside the box. And then there are anywhere from 8 to I think 15 like blocks, like dice. They're a little bigger. They're probably 3/4 of an inch. They're pretty good size. And they have, each side has a different word on it. And you take these dice apparently and you roll them in certain combinations and then you try. The idea is that you're teaching kids how to read and how to create sentences. Really interesting pieces. Not a lot of comps. There were some out there listed for $4 or $5. There were some listed for $30 or $40. These were in fairly mediocre condition. They were complete. Everything was in them, but the boxes had a lot of wear. There was a really mild, kind of musty scent. These had been stored in a basement. So I just listed the lot of 4 of them for $31.99 plus Ground Advantage shipping. And this was another one I sold in less than 24 hours. So pretty nice little sale. I was into these for 38 cents a piece. As part of that bulk buy. So I'm into it for $1.52. They sold for $31.99 with shipping. The buyer paid a total of $46.76. I paid $5.60 in fees. These sold so quickly, I hadn't even had a chance to put them in my promoted listing campaign, so no extra fees there. Shipping cost, again, as I talked about earlier, I don't pass along Ground Advantage shipping discounts, so I only paid $7.06 in shipping, so I made an extra $5, almost $6 in shipping. Cost of goods sold, 38 cents a piece, $1.52. So my net profit on this sale, $30.66 for an item that sold for $31.99 plus shipping. I will take that all day. Another one on eBay. This one was an interesting one. I got several questions on this. I think there was only one of these listed. It was a different edition than this, and the guy had it listed for like $9.99.99. And I was like, there's no way this book is worth $1,000, but I'm going to try it at auction. There were no sold comps, but it was another one of those kind of local type cookbooks that I like to work with. This was part of, again, that big bulk buy of 1,800 books, so I'm into this for 50 cents. But this was Judy's Cookbook by Judy Taraspolsky from Judy's Restaurant in Amherst, Massachusetts. It was a 1980 first printing book by the owner and I assume the chef of this particular restaurant. I ran this at an auction. I started it, I think, at $20. Again, I was under no illusion that it was worth anywhere near $1,000. That just didn't make any sense, but I thought we would try this at auction and see what happened. Again, I had a lot of questions on it, people asking if a particular recipe was in this book. So it was a really interesting week of kind of fielding questions on this item. Again, these random local cookbooks can be really interesting. Ultimately, through the bidding process, this item sold for $32 plus shipping. I paid $5.70 in fees, $2.76 in the promoted listing fee. Cost of goods sold, again, just 50 cents. Net profit, $23.04 for a old local Massachusetts area cookbook. Next up, back over to Etsy, Liberal Education by Mark Van Doren, a first Beacon Press paperback printing from 1959, discussing just what it talks about, the history of liberal education in the United States. Interesting book, again, part of that big 1,800 book lot. This was in fairly good condition, a little bit of discoloration and damage on the cover, but a fairly unusual book. This Mark Van Doren, I've got, I think, several of his books listed. They're all historical looks, mostly at education in the U.S. Listed for $39.99, sold on sale on Etsy for $35.99 plus shipping. I paid $4.21 in fees. This one stung a little. I did pay an offsite ad fee on this one of $6.09. Cost of goods sold 50 cents. My net profit 25.19. So this would have been 32 bucks in profit if it weren't for the offsite ad fee. Again, as I say all the time, maybe I wouldn't have sold it ever without having been advertised offsite, but that fee just seems extraordinarily high, which is something that I mentioned to Etsy in a survey they recently sent to me. Some more old textbooks. These are over on eBay. These were listed a very, very short time as well. The United States and the Other Americas Workbook, the United States and the Other Americas Teachers Annotated Edition hardcover, and another book called America Yesterday and Today. These are all obviously American history textbooks and workbooks. These were all from kind of the early 1990s. I listed these all individually, and I had one buyer that came in and bought all three and paid a total of $38.97 for the three of them plus shipping. I was into these for, I think, 38 cents a piece, again, as part of a big bulk buy. So my cost of goods sold was only $1.14, which is pretty nice. The buyer paid a total of $51.77. I paid $7.36 in fees. Interestingly, again, I paid $1.16 in promoted listings fees. They were only charged me the promoted listing fee for one of these books, even though all three of them were promoted. So I expect down the road I'm going to get hit with a promoted listing fee randomly for the other two, but we'll see. Buyer paid $9.87 for medium mail shipping. I was able to ship these cheaper by Ground Advantage and paid $6.89. So my total cost $19.48. This three books that sold for $38.97 plus netted me a profit of $32.29. These were really interesting. So I know I've said that like 15 times already, but this really is interesting. So I'm going through part of the big 1800 book lot, and I come across a yearbook for the University of Louisville from like 1934, I believe it was. And as I open it up, I find these three commencement programs from the 1930s, the 93rd, 94th, and 95th annual commencement programs from 1930, 31, and 32, just stuck in this book. So my cost of goods sold is recorded in my accounting software as zero because these were stuck in a book that I didn't even know when I acquired them. So I got nothing essentially in these. Not really much to go on from comps. I put these up on eBay for $14.99 a piece. Just, quick description. They're very small. They're like less than 10 pages a piece. So really fairly small books, big enough that they qualified for media mail, but not like a massive book of any stretch. So these three programs sold to one buyer who interestingly was the University of Louisville. So I thought that was probably the most interesting piece of it. The school actually found these on eBay and bought them. So I don't know if they don't have these in their records or if they just wanted more of them. There was no note or anything attached to it, but I thought it was really interesting that they were purchased by the University of Louisville. The item total ended up being $44.97 plus shipping. $49.59. They did not pay sales tax because, of course, they're tax exempt. I paid $5.92 in fees, $3.48 in promoted listings fees. I shipped these Ground Advantage for $4.28, so I made a little bit of money there. Again, cost of goods sold was nothing. These were found items in another book that I had already accounted for. So my total cost, $13.68, net profit, $35.91. Somebody commented a couple of weeks ago about like found paper ephemera and what I do with it. And here's a case where I found something stuck in a book that was fairly interesting, listed them at a fairly reasonable price, and ended up making essentially $36 on no initial investment, which is a deal that I think any of us would take. Another one over on eBay. This one I've had for a little bit of time. This was part of the 650 book lot. So I'm into this for 38 cents. It is the Airline Pilot by Marius Lodison from 1966. Dodd Mead and Company illustrated hardcover, X library in fairly mediocre condition. This was a little rough, but it is a very difficult book to find. Had it listed and sold for $49.99 plus shipping. I paid $8.27 in fees, $4.10 for the promoted listing fee. Again, cost of goods sold 38 cents, net profit $37.24 for the Airline Pilot by Marius Lodison. More textbooks. So this, you probably can't even see these on the screen. And to be honest, I'm not sure I can even read them for here. But I listed a bunch of old readers from the 1960s. Scott Forsman textbooks, teachers' guides. There was a whole box of them, again, as part of that big 650 book lot. So again, I'm into these for like 38 cents a piece or something. One buyer bought 6 of these. These are part of the New Basic Readers series. They bought book 3, part 1, book 2, part 2, Think and Do Year Workbook, book 2, part 1, Friends Old and New, book 3, part 1, and another Think and Do workbook. So there were 4 hardcovers and 2 workbooks in this lot of 6 books that I'm into for a total of $2.28. The buyer bought them for $57.94 plus shipping and tax total. They paid $72.68. I paid $10.20 in fees, $5.11 for promoted fees. I did save a little bit of money on the shipping because these went out by Ground Advantage for $6.89. Total cost of goods sold $2.28. So this sale netted me $44.08. Another example of kind of old textbooks, not even really in fantastic condition. These had some wear and some staining on the covers. They were just unusual enough, and I priced them competitively enough that somebody found one of them and found me and then bought a whole mess of them. This was 6 items in one sale. These were really cool. So these were also from that big 650 book lot. I have 3 volumes of this. I think I have 1, 3, and 4. And I had a buyer, I believe in Italy, oddly enough, that bought these. These are the Japan National Park books. Volume 1 was Hokkaido and Tohoku by Toshitaka Marita, if I'm saying that right. Big coffee table illustrated hardcover in its dust jacket from 1985. They also bought Volume 4, which was Kyushu and Okinawa by the same author. This was from 1986. These were really, really beautifully photographed kind of tours of these Japanese national parks. Really, really great looking books. I had them listed for $47.99 a piece. I got a watcher for both of them, and I sent out offers for the 2 of them, and this person bought both of them. Again, exposing a flaw that we've talked about for some time in eBay's offer system. This person was international. Like I said, I believe they were in Italy, and they could not combine these into one purchase. So they bought these items separately. I was not able to combine them for shipping. I had to ship them individually to eBay's International Shipping Center up outside Chicago. So the totals that I'm going to give you are the 2 combined and the 2 shipping and the 2 fees all combined. The buyer paid a total of $81.58 plus the shipping that I got was $15.26. They paid a total in US dollars of $100.72 for these. I paid $13.82 in fees, $6.78 for the promoted listing fee. These did go Ground Advantage, so I saved a little bit of money there, $14.70. Cost of goods sold, just 76 cents. Net profit on these 2 beautiful books from Japan in both Japanese and English language. Really interesting books. Net profit, $60.78. And that, my friends, is our flip of the week. Really some cool books there. Some really interesting stories behind some of that stuff. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, hey, do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening on Spotify or anywhere else, feel free to leave the podcast a review as well. That would be awesome. I would appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber or a follower, come on board. We do this pretty much every week. YouTube members do get early access to the Monday podcast episode, which sometimes is recorded on Saturday, but usually is recorded on Sunday. So you get it a day in advance and you support a good cause. Me. Also do a live show on YouTube pretty much every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Currently also, shameless plug, doing 2 Whatnot shows a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern. This Tuesday, I will have 70 plus vintage and antique books that will be all $1 starts, part of a big clearance sale. I'm trying to move some old inventory. So if you're inclined to come out on Tuesday, and we're going to run through 70 odd vintage and antique books. And then the Friday show is always vintage, science fiction, and fantasy. Let me know in the comments what you got from this episode, what you thought of any of the things that sold or any of the news stories we covered this week. My friends, as always, I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me here on your most of you seem to be watching or listening on Monday morning, so thank you for sharing a little bit of your time. Remember, if you're catching this early, there's no postal service on Monday. They got another holiday, so don't go to the post office if you're listening to this early enough to avoid a trip to the United States Postal Service. With that, thank you again for coming out, and now it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.